Starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
So good morning, good afternoon to everybody joining the call today. We want to welcome you all to this week's AMA webinar session. And this week, hosted by Volker Coco and Christina Davis, we'll be talking about some ways to repair AutoCAD if it isn't quite working the way you would expect, or if it's giving you a little bit of trouble. We're going to talk about some ways that you can hopefully get that repaired. I'm going to run a few polls here first before we start, just to get an idea of who we have on the line. So I'm going to launch the first one. We're just looking for an idea of how many subscription customers we have on the call today. And so that's great. So far it looks like quite a few, so that's great. We're happy to have you with us, as well as the non-subscription customers. We hope you'll be joining our subscription ranks soon. So our second poll today, we're just looking again for how many of you have attended one of these sessions before. And so if you could just take a minute and just submit that, that would be great. And so it looks like quite a few first-timers today, so that's great. We're happy to have you with us. Hopefully we can give you some benefit today out of this session. And then we'll just run one more before we start the session. And just looking for some information going forward on what might be best for the attendees on what day to hold them. So if you wouldn't mind just putting in what day is best for you, that would be very helpful for us. All right, great. And it looks like most of you are liking the Thursday sessions. So that's great. So I'll go ahead and close that one out. So before I turn it over to Volker, just we do have the chat window, so I'll be monitoring that for any questions that come in during the session. So if you have any questions on anything that is said, feel free to post a question there, and we will get to that just as soon as we can. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Volker and Christina.
All right. Thanks, Sean. Really appreciate that introduction. Appreciate everybody being here today and attending, and for the input you've given us in the polls. They are very useful to us, so we do appreciate that. So I'd like to welcome Christina Davis. Yes, she is my colleague on the East Coast who will be co-hosting these webinars with me coming down the road. And you'll find she is pretty sharp when it comes to AutoCAD. So happy to have you here, Christina.
Thank you. I'm doing a pageant wave now, if you can all see it.
So we're going to be talking about Troubleshooting 101. So this is the first of two of our troubleshooting webinars. And this one here deals primarily with the application. Now I say troubleshooting, but it's more, there is some troubleshooting involved, but for the most part it is being proactive about being able to restore any settings that you have, being able to transfer those settings to another computer or to an updated version of AutoCAD, perhaps. So we will be talking about that. So first of all, let me get one housekeeping slide out of the way here, or two actually. And for those who have been here, welcome back. And you'll know about this slide. For those who are new, feel free to leave questions in our chat window. We will answer those. We'll pause every once in a while to try and answer some of those, and we will have a Q&A session after this presentation. I also encourage you to check out our landing page where we do post upcoming sessions. I noticed today it has not yet been updated, but we do have 5 additional sessions in the queue on top of the 2 that are listed for next week and the following week. So be sure to check that out. If you don't have time to write down this URL, I am going to post a link to this PowerPoint slide deck, which you can download and then get to that. It'll have all these links in it, as well as the ones which are listed in this particular slide. Okay, so this is just to let you know about our knowledge network. These are just some of the articles that are posted, but you can find downloads on our knowledge network. You can find white papers, tutorials, tips and tricks from other end users as well as employees here at Autodesk. And every week it is updated with the newest solutions that have become available. And these are just some of those. Again, when you download, or if you download this slide deck, you will have access to these links. If not, if you don't feel like downloading those, just go to knowledge.autodesk.com. All right, so in this session, we're going to talk a little bit about restoring and resetting the menu system in AutoCAD. If you've many reasons to maybe do this, I'll talk about that when we get to the topic. We'll also talk about the AutoCAD registry entries that are put into place when you install AutoCAD. These settings can actually be exported to a file. We'll talk a little bit about resetting AutoCAD, and this of course applies to AutoCAD LT as well. There's a quick way just to reset it to its defaults. We'll go through that process. We'll also talk about transferring custom settings that we've implemented from one AutoCAD to another, and also some of the things to be aware of when doing so. And this includes migrating custom settings from previous releases. We'll take a quick look at Autodesk 360 and its online backup options. And finally, the good old faithful uninstall options, which are available with Windows applications, including a couple of tools that Autodesk provides that make the process a little easier. So, having said that, I think, Sean, do I have an additional poll I was wanting to run real quick?
We do. We're just going to launch this now. We're just looking to find out for customized settings how that's worked out for you guys in the past. Has it been stable? Have you had some trouble with it? So if you could just let us know, that would be great. So looks like for most people they have lost their settings once in a while, but thankfully none on a daily basis, so that's good.
Yeah, that would be a problem.
So yeah, it looks like most people have had it happen before, so hopefully we can give some tips on how to get those back quickly today. So,
However, about 25% of you, our user interface team, will be thrilled to hear that AutoCAD is just perfect the way it is.
Correct. Actually, that's a very interesting statistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And let's see. I think that's it on the polls for right now, right, Sean?
yes, yep. For now, we're just going on those.
Okay. So let me go ahead and switch to my other monitor, and we will take a quick look at restoring and resetting the AutoCAD CUI. Sean, can you confirm that my AutoCAD's showing up here?
It is, yes, it looks great.
All right, thank you. All right, so whether you dabble with customizing the AutoCAD CUI or not, there are many reasons why you may need to restore or reset the AutoCAD CUI. And in the past, we'd have to maybe get the menu system off of the installation disk, or maybe even do a complete uninstall and reinstall. But with the AutoCAD CUI, let's say my ribbon for some reason isn't working properly, or I'm missing menu items up here. Perhaps I've tried my hand at customizing, and I've just totally messed it up. Okay, I'm missing panels, you know, similar to this. Maybe these are gone completely. I don't know how to get this stuff back up there. You know, I may have closed these. Let's go ahead and close these. That one was my layout tab. Oops. Yeah. Okay, so modify. Where are we? Oh, doink, that foolish me. I've moved those off of there, so it's not going to show those right now. But let's say I can't get these back, okay? And for whatever reason, and they've disappeared. All I have to do is go into, if I have it available, obviously, the Manage tab up here. And you'll see we have this CUI, or User Interface tool. We can type CUI at the command line. And that brings up the Customize User Interface dialog. A lot of people who do customize are very familiar with this, but many of them I've noticed are not aware of the fact that if I right mouse click over the title of the menu, I can restore or reset this menu. Restore will bring it back to any changes that I have made previously. So if I've customized it or closed some panels, so if I click Restore right now, it's going to take a backup file that I have, and once I click Apply, it then brings my menu back the way it was. The reset completely rebuilds the AutoCAD CUI. You may have partial menus loaded. This also works on any partial menu. If just for example, the let's say I have a custom menu. I can do the same thing, reset or restore. Notice how restore is grayed out. That's because I've not made any changes to this particular menu. There is no back. So in a nutshell, that's it. That's how we can quickly get that back. It just rebuilds that menu. And I think you may find that very helpful as opposed to maybe uninstalling and reinstalling. All right, so having said that, I'm going to move on to my next topic, which is to talk about AutoCAD profiles. Unfortunately, profiles are not available in AutoCAD LT. Okay, so if we take a look here, I'm going to right mouse click over the command line, and in our options dialog we have profiles. Now Christina later is going to talk about why I have some additional entries here like 2K7 and TT laptop and so forth. But primarily, when you first launch AutoCAD, you have this unnamed profile. The first thing I typically do is I will go ahead and take these registry settings that have been saved. Okay, so anything pretty much in here, our support file paths, whether I'm using large toolbars, if my layout elements are enabled, etc. Any of these settings, with the exception of these icons, any set icons settings that have these icons, those settings are saved in a drawing. That's why we have that icon. But everything else in this dialog is saved in a profile. So what I typically do, just so I don't screw up the original, is I will create a new one by selecting it and choosing Add to List. And I'll typically, and you may already see this there, I'll have one called VC2015. Let's just do an A on this. Apply and close. And that is not current right now. So I'll just double click on it, and now it is the current profile. And once I've made all the little tweaks I want to make, do I want, what kind of background color, what kind of font do I want to use in my command line, and which menus do I have loading? Once I've made those settings, the first thing I'll do is I'll go ahead and export this to a location on the hard drive, giving it the same name as the profile. Oops, 5A. And all this is a text file that I can later, let's say I have to install this on another computer and I want everybody to have the same settings I do, or I need to move to a new computer or for whatever reason I may have to install AutoCAD again, I can easily restore the profile settings as well. Now, if things aren't working quite right, one thing you can do also, you've been successfully working in this profile for a while, but all of a sudden it stops working properly. Okay, so what I typically will do then is I can reset that to the default by selecting it and going to reset, but I'll typically go to another profile and then I will delete this and import that same profile back in again after closing AutoCAD one time. But I could also say, look, just go ahead and reset this to its defaults itself. I'll do that right now. Reset to default, yes. And this is how AutoCAD looks when it's first installed. So hopefully that's of some help. These profiles can be used to launch AutoCAD with different settings. Again, all your environment paths are saved as well, where your printers are, your plotters, where your custom files are, and so forth. Okay, it is not available in LT though.
We did have a question as well, Volker, on if it makes the backups automatically whenever you make a change in that section.
Okay, that is a good question. No. If you're going to make any major changes, you need to export the registry. You know, every time you make a change, like opening up another drawing, okay, so if I open up a drawing, do I have one? All right, let's just pretend I opened up a drawing. Well, that's going to be listed in my MRU, okay? And just like any other setting, the most recently used file list is also saved in the registry. So anytime you're doing something, you're modifying that registry. And so those are changes, and you probably wouldn't want those to update the profile every time. So good question, though.
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm actually going to, Volker, I'm going to go ahead and run our next poll because it has to do with this same subject, so we'll just quickly run that if that's okay, which is just looking for some information on how everyone is backing up their settings at this time. So if you wouldn't mind just letting us know, just so we have an idea of what folks are currently doing.
A lot of people using 360.
Yeah, it's like about 20% on 360, about 60% are just copying them manually. So and nobody's doing the screen captures, which is probably good.
Yeah, but you know, that was actually, it is a humorous question to have there, but people actually do that.
I was going to say I've seen it done that way. So
so I know Christina does it that way.
I did it that way. I'm a visual person, so that's great. If everybody's aware of it and making their own manual copies, you can never have too many backups.
That's right. All right, let me talk about one more thing before I turn this over to Christina for a minute, and that is resetting AutoCAD and AutoCAD LT. So I talked earlier about how it would be easier to like restore the AutoCAD menu system or reset it instead of uninstalling and reinstalling. Well, there are a lot of times where things may not work properly with the application. For some reason, maybe the mouse isn't responding properly, or tools are giving you an unknown command or something. So people in the past would always automatically maybe just reinstall AutoCAD, uninstall and reinstall it. We also had what is called a secondary installer, which is a Microsoft installation package that we could run in order to reset AutoCAD. Well, with AutoCAD 2012, and this includes AutoCAD LT, there is actually a tool found in the program group, and it is, and I'm actually going to do it with the AutoCAD LT, I think. reset settings to default. Now, in order for this to work, all AutoCAD applications have to be closed. So I'm just going to go ahead and close my AutoCAD. And then I'm going to go ahead and run that utility. Now, there are a couple nice things about this. One, it does a quick reinstall for you, yes. But prior to doing that, it will also back up any settings you may have in the application. Christina's going to touch on this in a moment. I'm just going to tell it to go ahead and reset custom settings for right now. It tells me, okay, we've done the reset. And now it goes through what is similar to an installation process. It's running that secondary installer. And then it launches AutoCAD or AutoCAD LT using the same settings that you initially saw when you first installed it. And there we go. So this, again, you need to shut your AutoCAD applications, go to All Programs, Autodesk, AutoCAD LT or AutoCAD, reset settings to default. So hopefully that'll be of help. Christina?
Yes.
I will let you take over.
Great. I'm going to show my screen then.
And while that's coming up to it, I just wanted to just a follow-up on what you just said there, Volker, is we hear from people from time to time that do the reset. It's really important if you have customized settings. I know you mentioned it, Volker, but just to reiterate, it's really important to back those up if you want them, because if you don't have those backed up, there's really no way to get them back after the reset. So really important that if you're doing the reset and you have customized settings, to check that setting to save them.
Thanks, Sean. Okay, so as Volker noted, most of us have some kind of customization, even if it's something as simple as just you placed a ribbon tab or a command in a certain spot that's more ergonomically easier for you to work with it. And what we're going to look at now is how we can migrate, export, and import those settings. So we use migrate settings to bring our customization from a previous version to our current version. So this would be from 2014 up to 2015. I want to migrate settings. And then our export and import settings are for the same version. So this would be a good method to create a backup of your custom settings and have it available so that if you have to go through one of these processes we're talking about, you can then import your custom settings. It's also a way for you to share it with other people. All right, so I'm going to start with the migrate settings, and just to show you what we're going to be looking for, I'm in AutoCAD 2014. And I'm going to take a look at our options dialog box, and we'll start on the Profiles tab. So Volker showed you that he's been kind of hoarding profiles for decades, centuries, who knows. And you see in here, these are parts of the things that I'm going to send out, and I want to bring them forward to 2015. We'll talk about how many of those you probably need over the years. And I've also have some support paths. So you may have network paths that are set up for plot style tables or templates, or in my case, I also have customization files. So the ones we're going to be looking for is I have a C folder that I want to bring up to 2015, and then I also have an enterprise customization file with my name, and I want to get those into the 2015 product. So I'm going to close out of this, AutoCAD 2014, and I'm going to show you real quick in 2015 that they're not there, just so we know that there's no magic, no Houdini going on. So I don't have any profiles in 2015, my C folder isn't there, and I don't have that enterprise customization file. So I'm going to close that out, and to get to the migrate, I'm going to go down to Start and All Programs, Autodesk, and then pick the product folder of the product I want to migrate things to, so 2015, and then Migrate Custom Settings, and then migrate from a previous release. You'll also see this when you install the new version and launch for the first time. It'll pop up. We'll talk about that as well. So I get this migrate dialog box, and it allows me to select which version I'm going to migrate from. and then I can check off the items that I need to bring forward. So my CUI files, if I had tool palettes, line files, hatches, my PGP files, so any of my aliases that I want to set up. And then I want to point out one important piece at the bottom here. There's a light bulb. And it says, if you don't like the results, you can reset the settings using the reset to default that Volker just showed us. So there are cases where, for example, if you're trying to jump 2, 3, 4 versions, everything might not line up exactly the way it was in that previous version. So you can always go back, and then you might have to tweak some things a little bit. I'm going to click OK, and we'll give that a moment to do its thing. And it gives me the option to look at a log. And this is just fun. Maybe you print it out, put it on your fridge, look what I did today. But it does show you where it's bringing files from. And you can see, all right, it picked up my profiles, it picked up my CUI files, and it's migrating those over to 2015 folders for me. So let's launch 2015. And when it opens up, we're going to take a look at our options box and see what came through. And then we're going to talk about some best practices with migrating. So I'll go back into the options dialog box, and there are all of those profiles, including my very first R14 profile. So proud of it. And then the folder that we have, and customizations files. Actually, I lost my enterprise one. All right, I may have to take a look at that. But that is the order of options that it should go.
So, sorry to interrupt here, but
No, please do.
things don't always work right with software. We all know this. And it happens to us as well. I know I've had a few awkward moments. But for the most part, being able to back up these settings using this utility and being able to transfer them, it does save you a lot of work. And there may be different scenarios why an enterprise profile didn't get copied over. It's hard to say. Maybe even going back and doing the menu system one more time might even bring that in. But for the most part, Christina was able to quickly bring in those settings without having to spend an hour or so just tweaking the application.
So yeah, it works when you're not sharing your screen.
Yeah, oh, everything does.
Okay, so we did bring in our migrate settings, and as I said, I did want to bring up a slide with just some best practices about migrating custom settings. So first thing is, I have 2014 installed, I'm installing 2015, and I want to migrate. I want to launch 2015 first and let it go through one full build process. Let it load all the routines and menus and things that it needs by default. Let it complete that, and then I can go ahead and do the migrate. And again, that's just because you want to make sure everything gets built up properly before you start trying to bring in older items. You also want to keep your previous version installed. So you don't want to take off 2014 before you've done the migration, or the tool doesn't know how to pick up on those settings that you have. Another good tip, now again, you can do multiple versions back. We would recommend that you keep it between a 1 version difference. And again, that's because each product release has a lot of different changes and enhancements, and there may be things that don't carry 3, 4, 5 versions forward, and it might wind up giving you more work if you do that. Empty your luggage. So this goes back to the profile hoarding. So if I've had profiles that I'm bringing forward from release 14, from 2012, from 2013, once I've imported that profile or migrated those settings, I don't need to keep hanging on to all of those. They've been brought into the new version. The settings are in there. I can just get one nice 2015 profile, save everything, and then export that out. So if you've got one that's going back to your very first profile, you might want to look at clearing that out so that you're not taking up a lot of space that you don't need to. And then take a look at what's new. So when I bring on 2015 for that first time, I want to look at what are the things that have come out recently that might affect any sort of custom settings that I've done in the past. For example, if there's a change between the operating systems, so we had certain support paths, now those paths on the new operating systems have ENUS folders. That's something that wasn't there always. So those are things you want to keep in mind. You may look at the what's new on our website or Lynn Allen's tips and tricks, and you might see there's something that might come out a little odd, so I might have to tweak that later when it's imported. Okay.
So I'm going to actually, if it's okay, I'm going to take a minute and jump in because we do have a question regarding this. So the question was, we use shared CUIX, palettes, Lisp, line types, etc. on our network. Is it dangerous for the CAD manager who has the only right access to these folders to run the migrate custom settings when we need to make sure both the previous versions and the new version can coexist?
Well, okay, so items saved on the network lockdown, only one person with access,
Yes.
and that person is going to run the migrate.
That's what it sounds like, yeah.
Okay, I'm not. It sounds like IT is logging onto the machine and then running the migrate. So, I mean, in theory, I would think that that should work, unless there's something, some other variable there that we're missing.
So it's going to be able to read anything
Yeah.
that has been added to the registry. So paths pointing to that network location, to those tool palettes and so forth. It'll be able to read that stuff, and it'll be able to rebuild those paths on the local machine, but it cannot, I mean, if there are no write permissions to the network locations, then it's not going to be able to copy anything to those locations. But it shouldn't have to either, if all it's doing is pointing to the paths. It really, I mean, there are so many factors involved in that. For the most part, it should work.
Yeah, it's getting a little specific into your individual setup there, Kevin. So what I would recommend is, you know, that's some good advice from Volker and Christina, but we're also going to post the forum link where we ask for any follow-up questions. So if you have additional questions, since this is somewhat specific to your setup, if you want to go and post your question there, and one of us will make sure to reach out and maybe help you walk through that.
Yeah, definitely. We do check that, believe it or not. And I do want to point out that I did post earlier the link to the slide deck in the chat window. And so all the links that you've seen so far, as well as the location to the landing page and the feedback forum and some additional resources, all those links are in the slide deck.
Yeah. We have, if it's okay, Volker, 2 more quick questions before you go to your next slide. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
So the first one is, we don't load the new version on the same computer. We wipe out the computer and re-image. Is there a way to migrate without having to have both versions on the same computer?
Not migrate, because you do. You could create a settings. Well, that wouldn't work either. So typically, what I would do is I would go into options, and I would export the profile. You can then import the profile. However, any files that you have for the pathing or so on are going to have to be in place, if that makes sense. All you really have to do is import that profile, and it will rebuild those settings for the most part. If you don't have your custom CUI or your customized files on that computer already, of course, it's not going to find it. The profile will not bring in those files.
Right, and we get that sometimes too, where users will uninstall, say for instance 2014, and then they install 2015 and try and do the migrate, but you know, the previous version does need to be on there for the migrate from previous version to work correctly.
So and thank you, Sean. Yeah, from a management perspective, you may want to do this. and that is to go ahead after you've wiped your computer and installed AutoCAD 2015, create all those settings that you want in place, then export the settings using the export custom settings function, and then you can import those on other workstations. And I believe Christina brought that up at one point, but I thought I'd reiterate that.
Yeah, we haven't looked at it just yet, but since you brought it up, I'll just show it real quickly where that export is. So it's still in the Programs folder, Autodesk, and I would go to Migrate Custom Settings, and then Export AutoCAD 2015 Settings with AutoCAD 2015 closed.
I didn't mean to jump ahead there, Christina. Sorry about that.
No, we're right on track.
So then the only other question we had was you had talked earlier, Volker, about the restore settings to default option that can be used. And the question was if that is available in Windows 8.1, and if so, where is that?
Yes, and it is available. Windows 8.1, depending on how you have it set up. If you go to this, what is called the start screen, not the desktop, but the start screen, and depending on how many applications you have installed, there's going to actually be a unique icon for reset to default settings. I don't have 8.1 on my computer here, so I can't show you, but it will be the only reset icon, unless you have multiple versions of AutoCAD installed. Then you may see more than one. Hopefully that answers it. There's no real program folder. Actually, 8.1 may have that program folder for AutoCAD, but I can't recall, so I can't answer that as far as the program group goes. So I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, and we actually we do have a knowledge base article on that as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post that into the chat window. So for any users that want to see how that's done, that is posted into the chat window right now.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Any other questions then, Sean? Or I think Christina may have another.
Yep, no more questions. I didn't know if you wanted do you want the next poll on 360 at this time, or are we waiting on that?
Christina,
I just want to run through the export and import just so people see
Okay,
how
sure.
that works. And then we'll go right to it. And I do see we have a hand raised, so if you have your hand raised and you have a question, you might just want to type it in the chat, so that will let us see specifically what's going on. All right, so again, where we went was All Programs, Autodesk, AutoCAD 2015, Migrate Custom Settings, and we're exporting the settings. And I'll click Export, and it's going to prompt us to save a zip file. Now, one of the things that can happen that makes people panic a little bit is you look at this folder, looks like it's been created, has some size to it, but when you try to view it, it's like there's nothing in there. Did I lose my customization? What happened? And it's just that when we're trying to view it through Windows Explorer, it is not going to show us those files. But if you have a program like 7-Zip or WinZip or WinRAR, you can view what is inside that zip folder. I'm using 7-Zip. And if you just want to check it to double check that your settings, your program file settings, your user settings, that information has been included in the zip folder. So data links, I have migration XMLs, any plotter information, plot styles, they are all included. It's just a matter of making sure you're viewing it in a more powerful viewer than just what's in Windows Explorer.
Yeah, for some reason that is a limitation with the Windows built-in archiving utility, and we actually get a lot of support requests on that. So we are trying to make a point to emphasize that the data is there. You just need to use a different tool.
Yeah, and most of those you can get for a free download as well. All right, and then the import is just in the same location, right underneath where the export was. Import AutoCAD 2015 settings. And remember, this is the one that does need to match version to version, so I couldn't take my 2014, import those into 2015, or vice versa. So I'll select the zip. It'll take a few moments to process the data and then let me know that my migration has been successfully imported and gives me a log similar to the migrate settings. And then I can return to AutoCAD. All right.
So if you haven't been aware of these tools, and we've got a couple more to cover, these are worthwhile knowing about for saving your settings. That was great, Christina.
Thank you. And I'll switch it back to you.
All right, Sean, if you wanted to just do our second to last poll.
Sure, and what we're looking for here is for the Autodesk 360, really just if you're using it, how you're using it, or if it's something that you haven't heard of yet. And looks like most people aren't using it for either of those. A few folks haven't heard of it. But pretty spread across the board here on these 5 options.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Some pretty even on those last ones, huh? All right, well, let's take a look at that, because it is, and Sean, can we see my AutoCAD? Hello?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, no, we're just seeing the opening page right now.
Okay, all right, good. So there we go. All right, so in AutoCAD.
We're still not seeing it, Volker.
Oh, really? Okay,
no, we're not
so
seeing AutoCAD yet.
that's
there it is.
okay. Great. Huh.
Good to go.
Had me worried. I was in a panic mode. All right, so going into the AutoCAD options here, we have this online tab, and you see I'm in AutoCAD LT right now. Okay, so AutoCAD LT has this as well, and here we can do, this is all AutoCAD 360 or Autodesk 360 functionality. Basically, this button here takes us to the documents and folder list for 360, and I think I'm having some connectivity issues here. Let me switch over to AutoCAD while I'm talking about this. All right, so all of our applications now have some form of Autodesk 360, and we have this Enable Automatic Sync, which syncs your data. Okay, so any drawings that you have, it will sync those online. You don't have to enable this. It's just like a Dropbox tool or something like that. Very similar to that. We also have Sync My Settings with the Cloud. And this is particular to our webinar right now, okay, or specific to our webinar. And I'll switch over here to AutoCAD 2015. And again, I can enable all that through the options dialog. Right now, this is the default install of AutoCAD. I'm going to go ahead and select this. I can choose which settings I'd like to sync. So any of the options, so the ARG file settings, customization files, printed support files, etc. Any custom fonts, shapes, and line types will also be synced. But if you have those, AutoCAD will have to restart after you synchronize those back with your application. Okay? So basically, if it downloads those things, it'll have to do a restart. I'm going to click OK here and click Apply. Now, once I've done that, it says, hey, okay, we're ready to synchronize with your online settings, which are different than what you have installed right now. Well, if I were to sync this, it would just synchronize the default settings of AutoCAD online. I don't want that. I already have my settings saved online. So I'm going to go ahead and use my online settings to synchronize. Yes, we do need to restart in this case, so I'll do that now. Help it along by closing some dialogues there. Good. Close AutoCAD LT. And while that's launching, in a few moments I'll also show you where you can check out which settings have been saved. But note now that I have my classic workspace that I like working with. Okay, so VC drafting and annotation. It no longer has the default look of the installed AutoCAD. These are my settings, the way I saved them. Now, if you want to know where all this stuff is at on your hard drive as well, because it keeps copies of this on your local drive, there is, under your app data folder, local Autodesk, there's AC Cloud Connect, okay, and as well as your Autodesk Sync files, okay, these are all located there. But the AC Cloud Connect, Settings Sync, go into My Name, you'll see for every application you have installed on your computer, you're going to have a folder for that. And here are all those settings that have also been uploaded online. Basically, I don't have too many custom files here. So it does create an XML file which tells it what kind of changes have been made. And if you had any network paths for plotter configuration, whatever, those would be listed here as well. So that's Autodesk 360 and a quick way to save your settings. And then if you go to another office, perhaps you work in multiple offices, you could log into your 360 account and it would prompt you to download those settings for that computer. Okay? Any questions on that, Sean?
There is just one, which is what is the maximum storage size for Autodesk 360?
It depends on whether you are a subscription customer or not. Sean, do you recall the size? I think it was like 5 gigabytes for a non-subscription customer and 25 for a subscription customer.
That sounds right to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's quite a bit of space, okay, especially if you're a subscription, and I'm not sure if, you know, there are ways to increase it or not, but as a default, that's pretty good. So,
I actually think it might be increased already, Volker.
Yeah. Yeah,
I just pulled up my account, and I have 500 gig available, so.
Okay, well, so yeah, it sounds like it did increase it a tiny bit. All right.
I think it would be difficult for anybody to really pass it unless you're doing, you know, really huge sort of model files, you know, then you might have an issue. But for anybody just using AutoCAD or AutoCAD LT and just regular DWGs, it's going to be really difficult to reach that max.
Right. So let me we're running a little short on time here. I have a couple of small things to show you here. First of all, sometimes just resetting the application doesn't work. Okay, and that'll happen with any Windows application. And you may have to do that, uninstall or reinstall of the application. So a couple things to note about AutoCAD here. First of all, if you're running any kind of suite, chances are you've often looked at it and said, well, gee, which application do I have to uninstall first, right? You uninstall the wrong one, and for some reason something else won't uninstall. Autodesk now with its applications makes available this uninstall tool. And here you can uninstall components individually, so the other applications which have been installed. If you're running a suite, it's going to show every application for the suite, and you can choose to uninstall the whole thing or just one or two components. So that is a great tool to be aware of. And that is, again, under Autodesk. And here we have uninstall. We're all familiar with Control Panel and the programs and features for installing, uninstalling. We do have a couple of options available there. And that is, if I go to, say, AutoCAD LT, we have this uninstall change. And here we have add or remove features. So if you forget to install something, like Express Tools in AutoCAD, LT doesn't have them, of course, but let's say, for example, the reset settings hasn't been installed, or migrate custom settings. Well, here's where you would add those. We also have two options for repairing and reinstall. Repair basically overwrites everything and resets the registry entries for AutoCAD. Very similar to importing or resetting the profile in the options dialog, or doing a reset. A reinstall, all the files are refreshed on that computer. Chances, I mean, this works great, but it doesn't always mean it's going to work for whatever the problem is that you're having. So you may have to do a complete uninstall at times. It is annoying. I know I go through it with other applications with AutoCAD. Heck, I've had to reformat my hard drive, okay? So I've been there. I feel for you. If, for some reason, you do need to go further than just your basic reset and reinstall, in this slide deck, we do have some links available for you. Okay, first of all the functions that we covered. Here in this Create and Manage Customization Files, we talk about resetting the AutoCAD menu. We also talk about migrating and transferring custom settings in this document, resetting user profiles, all these things we just showed you. Also, if you are running a version of AutoCAD prior to AutoCAD release 2012, or perhaps one of the verticals which have only recently included the reset to default, here's an article on reinitiating the secondary installer for AutoCAD to reinstall that without uninstalling. Worst comes to worst, these two articles right here, this one here talks about doing a complete clean uninstall and reinstall. That is getting rid of all the registry entries, all the files AutoCAD installs, and removing those entirely so that you do get a complete clean AutoCAD installation or suite installation. And believe it or not, this third item down, Microsoft Fix-It. This is actually a tool that works. It works very well. We've recommended it often to product support customers. I've used it several times to fix applications. It's something to check into, and we talk about it in this particular document. So, download this slide deck. Some good information here. Sean, any?
We do just have a comment and then one more question, which may or may not be quick. But Kevin mentioned that, and I was actually trying to research it at the same time, and he mentioned Autodesk employees, and this is what I had suspected, do get more storage. So I believe subscription customers are still at 25 gig. It's just Autodesk employees that are a little higher than that. So, you know, 25 gig might still be the limit, which, again, you know, it hopefully is enough for everybody.
It's a good chunk of space.
Yeah. And then the question was, I have noticed when 360 is set to upload files automatically, it often exceeds our upload allowable from Comcast and can stop our internet access, so we shut it off. Any ideas?
Yeah, that's a good one there because it does update. I believe it's every 3 minutes. It will sync settings. So we have the option to do a manual sync in the icon tray. Let me switch over, oops, to my primary here. Can you see my taskbar, Sean?
Yes.
Okay. So, thank you. For Autodesk 360, you have this option to just do a pause sync or sync now. In Preferences, you can tell it that do not copy automatically or never copy those files for, well, I guess that's linked. But, here you can turn this on or off. I'd maybe think about writing a Windows script or something to pause or restart the sync. I will say this, the Autodesk 360 team is aware of questions similar to this, and it is...
Voker?
Yes.
It sounded like the recording has started back again. I don't know if you might have clicked something.
Not on this end.
We're hearing your voice starting the session all over again from the recording.
Yeah, I hear my voice